So welcome everyone to this the DEO catch-up, and particularly to this first information giving slot that we have, which shouldn't last more than 10 minutes, and just an opportunity for me to bombard you with all the information that I have, and then obviously afterwards we'll have a chat about the information and things that you're doing as well. Now, the first thing I want to just bring to your attention, and I have emailed a few of you about this, but just in case you aren't aware, there is a project called Solar for GM Faiths, which is looking at developing a framework to support installation of solar panels on faith buildings in Greater Manchester. Now, they did have a Zoom on the 21st of November. I wasn't able to go to that, and I know some people went to that from the diocese, but there is now a workshop happening next Monday, the 12th of December, from 3:30 to 5 p.m. at Salford Cathedral. And that's for anybody who wants to, is serious really about thinking about how they could put solar panels on their own faith buildings, and they want to take it forward. And it's an opportunity to gather together to chat about some of the opportunities, the barriers, specific work needed. If you can't make that meeting, but you're interested, don't worry, I'll take notes and share anything that I've got with anyone. But if you can make that meeting, you need to email Richard Baker. Richard Baker is coordinating this in partnership with Electricity North West and the Salford Catholic Diocese. And his email is down at the bottom there on the screen, richard@blueplanet.co.uk. And he will then register that you are interested in this and send you any further information. And if you want to, like I say, if you can't make it, just let me know and I'll make sure that we get any information out to those who need it. So that's really for people who are interested in solar panels on faith buildings, and it's based around this idea of a community benefit society. So it's an idea where if we all club together as a community, it costs less for the installation, etc., and we hopefully generate some money which then can be used for good causes as well. There's a whole load of really good webinars. I know I talk about webinars, CV webinars all the time, but the really, really good webinars coming up in 2023. If you go onto the Church of England Environment page, you'll find links to all the different types of webinars that are going to be on. As you can see, there's stuff about measuring your carbon footprint, creating a net zero carbon plan, net zero carbon schools, and a net zero carbon diocese. But there's also, all of this really is part of a really good resource that they have literally only launched, I think yesterday or the day before, of action packs. And these action packs are on the website, again, on the Church of England Environment website. And they are they're action packs that help to support what you're doing in dioceses, churches, cathedrals, schools, and theological colleges. So if you go, there's a link here, as you can see on the website, brand new action packs. And if you click on that link, you come to a page like this. And each link takes you to really good information and guidance about what you need to do in this particular area to achieve net carbon zero by 2030, and what the milestones are that have been set out by their Church of England route map. So for most of you, this will be the interesting one to look at, the churches one, although there will be some of you that are looking at schools and cathedrals, and for some of us, we're looking at the diocese as well. But these are really informative, helpful ways of breaking down what we need to do to get to net carbon zero by 2030. Now, if we're to click on that churches link, the first thing you come up is, these are the milestones that have been set for churches to meet for this up until we get to 2030, so we can journey along and make that 2030 target. And as you can see, some of the targets include, registering with Eco Church. And this is a biggie, which we'll have to look at very carefully. By the end of 2023, so that's next year, each diocese to have a 90% plus completion rate for the energy footprint tool. Now, we reached around the 50% mark this year, which was much, much better than we'd managed years before. But as you can see, we need to up our game again, because we need to try and meet that target of 90% by the end of 2023. So we're going to be starting to really push the energy footprint tool and preparation for the energy footprint tool pretty much after Christmas. But at this stage, what you'll need to be thinking about is thinking of the material that you're going to need to complete the energy footprint tool. And it's really good to start thinking about that now, so that when it becomes live, you've got the information to go. So the information you're going to need is that your gas and electric bills for 2022. You're going to need those. You're going to need to know how much you spent, how much you used, and what kind of gas and electricity it was. Was it renewable? That kind of thing. You're also going to need to know your attendance figures, and you're going to need to know the size of your church. Now, if you've done this before, that will be pre-populated. But if it isn't, there are some really easy ways to do it. I've just paced one of my churches to work out the floor space, which is what they're looking for. But if you start thinking about these things now, then you can get ready for when we start really nagging you next year. And do involve your young people. There is no reason at all why your young people can't measure your church, for example, or have a look at your attendance stats and work out what your attendance stats and things like that. Involve them where you can, and do make sure, try and get it a team involvement. But these are the kind of things you're going to need to get ready, and get ready fairly soon, because we really are going to have to work very hard to get to this 90% plus completion rate next year. But you can see also there's lots of other things that this website will tell you about, what you need to be done by 2024, by 2025, and you'll go down and it'll give you lots of tips and ideas about how we can meet those targets. So it's a really good resource. And you can see the websites at the top: churchofengland.org, about environment and climate change, net zero carbon route map. So it's all there. But if I just often Google Church of England environment, and it comes up. So it's very easy to find. Another one to be thinking ahead of: Fair Trade Fortnight. I know we're all very focused at the moment on the big season, but Fair Trade Fortnight will be here before you know it. And it's a really good opportunity. Eco Church focuses quite a bit on fair trade and how we use fair trade in our churches. So why not do something during Fair Trade Fortnight to boost your understanding and knowledge and use of fair trade in your context? And as you can see, they are linking fair trade with climate change, talking about how some, resources that we use often, cocoa, bananas and coffee, could be more difficult to find because of climate change, and combined with the deeply unfair trade communities, these crops are becoming harder and harder to grow. So this gives us plenty of opportunity to think about how we might talk about that, address that within our churches. We could do a fair trade coffee morning, see a fair trade challenge. Can you bake, how much of your cake can be fair trade? And so on, so on. You could really sort of have a look at how you could incorporate Fair Trade Fortnight into your whatever you're doing. Another push for the ALM course, particularly the Ecology and Creation. The closing date is somewhere around the middle of January. It's a really good opportunity for anybody who lay within your congregations who's interested in exploring ecology and creation and wants to have some more information about it. So have a think either for yourself or somebody in your congregations to see whether there's anybody there. It really is a course that helps to equip and empower lay people to live out that ministry of creation care within their context. Another, as I've already talked about, Eco Church was plugging our Eco Church again, as we always do. If you've not registered, why don't you try registering and just see and go from there and have a look at the survey. If you've got bronze, it could be something that you could think about doing, how we can get to silver. I've been working with our eco group here in my church, and we went through the survey together, and then we identified the kind of things that we needed to do, and we split them up between the various members of the group, who, particularly who was interested in what, and they've all gone off and done, and myself included, started to approach and look at those things, then come back and we'll complete the survey again and see how far on we are. Any questions about Eco Church, do come and let me know. Do drop us a line anytime. But on that note, we did have a visit to a Gold Eco Church in Liverpool not so long ago, which was really interesting for those that came along. Also quite encouraging, really, because it kind of made us realise that it is possible, it is achievable. It was a big old listed building, and they were a Gold Eco Church, and they had a tent, if you've seen the pictures on social media, inside their church, which was insulated. The roof was insulated, and they did their worship inside that tent instead of doing it in the main church building. It was really interesting visit, really. But we are following up from that. We've got a couple of events that Matthew Barber-Rowell is conducting next year. And on the 31st of January, these are, as far as I know, these are evening events, and their webinars are online. And we'll be hearing from Nick Harmon about the work that they've been doing in their church around becoming an eco church. So you'll be getting to hear from people on the ground about how it's working for them. And on the 7th of February, we have a silver event. So we'll be listening to Gordon, who's with us today, and Matt Carson about their Eco Church Silver Awards. So those two may be important events that you might want to put in your diary, or encourage other people in your churches to come along to as well. I always put the quick wins slide up. Some things that we can all do quite easily: building creation care into our worship, prayer and Bible study, engaging with local groups like litter picking groups, switching from disposable, non-biodegradable tableware, LED lights. And I'm really pushing at the moment the timings of the meetings. Do we need to have our PCCs 7:30 on a Wednesday evening, whatever it is, where we're heating up the church or the church hall just for this meeting? Can we think, particularly in winter, about other ways in which we could meet, maybe after church when the church is already warm, for these meetings instead, to save on energy, and also to save people traipsing out late at night when it's dark? So have a think about those quick wins that you can do. A couple of things for us to pray for. One of the Eco Church guidelines and stipulations is about praying and for local and national and international issues. You'll have heard the news that the first UK coal mine in decades has been approved yesterday. This might be something that you want to pray for in your churches, or might be something that we can talk about how we could respond. We're called to have a voice, to have a prophetic voice. How could we respond to this news? So that's something, keeping an eye on what's going on in the news locally, nationally and internationally can shape our prayers and our actions in our churches. A little bit of good news to go alongside that was the onshore wind rules are likely to be relaxed. Again, this is something to keep praying for. What can we do in our churches to support this? How can we talk about this? How can we make ourselves more aware of what's going on? Because all of these things matter when we're thinking about the climate emergency. Now we do have some changes coming up for the environmental catch-ups, the biggest one being that Clive, my other DEO colleague, is leaving, and he is leaving at the end of this month. So he will no longer be a DEO in Manchester. He's going to Bristol, and we're all going to really miss him. It's just where, you might, if you see him or want to drop him a line or anything, I'm sure he'll be glad to hear from you before he goes. He's going to go to Bristol, and I'm sure he'll be a force to be reckoned with there. But that's one of the changes that's happening. Another change that's going to happen with our environment catch-up is that whilst the format will stay the same and it will be monthly, one month being at a lunchtime Zoom and the next month being an evening Zoom. So hopefully try and catch people who may not be able to make one time or the other. I will lead this along with Matthew Barbarowell, who we will co-lead it. But what we really want to do is say, does anybody else want to help us lead it? Does anybody want to get on board and maybe chair a session or facilitate a session? We'd love to hear and encourage everybody to sort of share in the running of this environment catch-up too. Now you can see that I haven't updated these slides, but Reverend Clive Hamilton is still here till the end of the month. So if you email, you could be emailing either myself or Clive till then. And that's our email. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at ManDioEco, and also obviously on our Facebook page.